Welcome back, everybody. It's time for another Sunrise interview. We're starting something new on KGET Plus, a community book club, and you're invited to join us. And this month, our staff is reading Culpability by Bruce Holsinger. And joining us in studio to talk more about some of the ethical themes in this book, we have CSUB's Professor Nate Olson. Professor Olson, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, so for those of you who have not read this book, it explores a lot of ethical themes as artificial intelligence rises. At the heart of the story, a catastrophic accident happens after the minivan's self-driving mode is overridden by the driver. So, Professor Olson, my question to you is, who is to blame in this scenario?
Well, yeah, so difficult there in the case where it's the driver who overrides it. So I think then we always have to think about the responsibility that we carry. So I would say probably the driver in this scenario.
A lot of ethical themes talked about in this book. So let's talk about artificial intelligence and the rise of it. Do you think we can turn responsibility over to machines in the future or in different contexts?
Well, I think definitely right now when we think about artificial intelligence, it can be a benefit to different people, it can be a benefit to us in different ways, but ultimately we as people still hold the ethical responsibility. We're the ones who are crafting machines, and we need to think about that's not ethical responsibility. It's not something that we can just turn over.
And self-driving cars are starting to hit the market. Tesla, Cadillac, both of those the leaders in that. But there are questions about technology being safe, and rightfully so. Where do you stand on this new technology? Do you think it's safer?
Well, you know, I think it's interesting with self-driving cars, specifically thinking about that. And I think, you know, it's not a given that it's safer, but it definitely depends on the amount of testing that we've done. And we've seen that some companies that are doing this have done a lot of testing. If they're doing it in very contained areas where they've done a lot of mapping, there's some evidence that it's safer. But I think we always need to be vigilant. We need to be careful. There's people's lives in our hands, especially with something like a self-driving car.
CSUB's ethics professor Nate Olson joining us now to talk about culpability and some of the ethical themes with artificial intelligence. Ethics bomb now for you.
Okay, I'm ready.
When does the responsibility move over to artificial intelligence and not the individual?
Yeah, so I think in the cases, there's a lot of interesting discussions out there. This is what we do as ethics professors, think about these scenarios, and some of these are becoming real life scenarios. So there's people who program and thinking about cars that are being programmed, and so the people that are doing that programming, certainly as a corporation or as a company, they bear some responsibility for the product that they're putting out there. But I think, you know, ultimately as we're getting into vehicles and things that as drivers, that you know, that's something that we're going to have to share with corporations and with the people that are operating these vehicles.
Elsewhere in the AI scene is the rise in chatbots. ChatGPT obviously very popular, but what role do developers have in protecting users in that context?
Yeah, and ChatGPT as a professor, that's something that's huge for us of thinking about that, and I think it's always a responsibility that we have to make sure that we're creating things that can be used in ethical ways and that it's clear to us, and as we're thinking about as things are developed, that there's safety constraints put into place, that ChatGPT is not telling people to do things that are harmful to themselves or to other people. So I think ethics and technology is a huge topic for us that we need to always be thinking about all the different ramifications.
CSUB's ethics professor Nate Olson here to talk about culpability. You can follow along with us and share your thoughts on the book. Just use the hashtag KGET Book Club on our social media channels. Once again, KGET Book Club, reading Culpability and the impact artificial intelligence has on our lives. So Professor Olson, thank you so much for joining me this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Of course, we're talking ethics this morning. We'll see you on the other side. And the next half hour of Sunrise is coming up next.